Levin is recognized for an amendment.
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk, and I ask unanimous consent to dispense with the reading.
Without objection, the reading of the amendment is dispensed with, and the gentleman is recognized for remarks on his amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know it's very late, and I know we all want to go home, but I just ask you to listen to me just for a minute or two. I offer the simplest amendment you're going to see tonight. It's a simple up or down on whether or not we're a co-equal branch of government, whether or not the Appropriations Committee, that I'm new to, but many of you have been here for decades, actually has the power of the purse. Article 1 says, and I quote, "No money shall be drawn by the Treasury, but in consequence of appropriations made by law," end quote. That's the basic authority of this committee. I would argue it's the most fundamental power in the Congress. We all work pretty damn hard to get here and to get on this committee. We were elected to decide how taxpayer dollars are spent, not to write blank checks for the executive, or specifically for the Office of Management and Budget. I know the director of the OMB has a different view, but the Empowerment Control Act of 1974 is clear. We have the power of the purse. We have the ability to authorize the programs and to fund them. So I ask you all, protect this institution. Protect the role that the framers gave us. They gave Congress, they gave us the power of the purse. Full stop. And that's all this amendment says, no tricks. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it's simply the Respect America's Constitution Amendment. I fear, my colleagues, that if we don't defend the power of the purse right now, in this moment, we may never get it back. I'm going to say that again. If we don't defend the power of the purse right now, right here, we may never get it back. Some of you might think this is funny or a joke. I don't. I care how these tax dollars are spent. We're responsible for $2 trillion a year. We damn well ought to live up to that responsibility. We're either co-equal or we're not. Mr. Chairman, I'll yield back.
Thank the gentleman and appreciate the amendment. I just would ask him not to rub it in for those of us that have been here decades. So with that, recognize my friend, Mr. Carter, to respond to the amendment.
I rise in opposition to this amendment. This amendment is an attempt to tie the hands of President Trump and his administration's work to cut waste, fraud, and abuse. The bill has reprogramming requirements as proposed. This is a duplicate of current language. I urge my colleagues to oppose the amendment.
Thank you. The gentlelady from Florida, the ranking member of the subcommittee, is recognized for a response to the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise in support of this amendment, and I want to thank Representative Levin for offering it. I'll remind my colleagues, or make some aware that weren't aware, that earlier last month, VA Secretary Collins sent our committee a notification, and I want to emphasize this, a notification that he planned to move $343 million between accounts at the VA. He did not ask us permission, which every administration, whether Democratic or Republican, has done and is required by law. I raised this issue with him at our VA budget hearing, and I want to thank both Chairman Cole and Chairman Carter for backing us up, because we do actually occasionally stand up for our power of the purse. Since then, we've received confirmation that those funds remain in place and have not been moved. This committee and this Congress have never faced such unprecedented attacks on our authority and our role in this democracy. Our constitutional responsibility, our Article 1 responsibility, is appropriations, what we do here. We are a committee, one of two, named in the Constitution. This amendment reaffirms that the Congress has the power of the purse strings, not the executive branch. We don't need to be standing up for the executive branch here. We need to stand up for our co-equal branch of government. We have to unite as appropriators to support this amendment, and I thank Mr. Levin for offering it, and I yield back.
Thank the gentlelady. Are there other members wishing to comment? Gentlelady from Connecticut, the ranking member of the full committee, is recognized. Microphone.
Thank you. I'll say it again. I rise in support of this amendment, which does something all of us should be able to agree on. It states that the bills we are writing in this chamber are indeed law. and they become the law of the land when we pass them in the House, in a bipartisan way, and then they pass them in the Senate in a bicameral way, and the president signs these laws, these bills into law. It is the law of the land. I wish we did not need to be offering such a seemingly obvious amendment, but these are no ordinary times. The Congress's authority and this committee's very relevance, its relevance, are being directly challenged by a lawless administration every single day. The Constitution, Article 1, Section 9, Clause 7, read it, reread it, and maybe it'll give you a toughness about what we stand on in the Appropriations Committee. If it is true that there are Democrats, there are Republicans, and there are appropriators, then now is the time for appropriators to stand up and preserve our constitutional authority over the power of the purse. We're not the first to assert the power of the purse. As I said, it's in the Constitution. But Alexander Hamilton, and I quote, "Where the purse is lodged in one branch and the sword in another, there can be no danger." A founding father. With respect to the suggestion that the president has a constitutional power to decline to spend appropriated funds, we must conclude that existence of such a broad power is supported by neither reason nor precedent. Chief Justice William Rehnquist. Even the president does not have unilateral authority to refuse to spend, quote, end quote. Justice Kavanaugh, then for the D.C. Circuit. No area seems more clearly the province of Congress than the power of the purse. Chief Justice Roberts. Much as we love the president, if Congress, in its omnipotence over appropriations and in accordance with its authority over policy, passed a law that garbage should be put on the White House steps, it would be our regrettable duty as a bureau, in an impartial, non-political, and nonpartisan way, to advise the executive and Congress as to how the largest amount of garbage could be spread in the most expeditious and economical manner. Charles Dawes, who was chair of the Appropriations Committee many, many years ago. Now, if you think about, let's move up. Antonin Scalia, proudly proclaimed as much, and no liberal torchbearer, I might add, proclaimed as much in reference to the Supreme Court's decision in Train versus City of New York that there is no inherent authority of the president to impound funds, to steal funds appropriated by the Congress. There is no unilateral authority to refuse to spend. This is a myth. The myth of presidential impoundment power goes all the way back to 1789. And if there has been a refusal of funds, or there has been a delay of funds, that power has emanated from the Congress and not from the president. We are a nation of laws under the Constitution. Eroding the Constitution inevitably erodes the freedom and liberty and the prosperity of Americans. If the Appropriations Committee cannot agree that the resources that we appropriate in law are indeed the law of the land, then why are we here? I urge my colleagues, and I thank Congressman Levin for introducing this amendment. I urge you to support this amendment. Hold on to the power that the Constitution has given appropriators. That's why we serve on this committee. And we have jurisdiction over $1.6 trillion every year. If we let it go, if we give it over to the executive, then we ought to look for another committee to be a part of. I yield back.
Thanks, gentlelady. Are there other members, gentlemen from Maryland recognized to address the amendment?
Mr. Chairman, Chairman of the subcommittee.
Microphone.
Mr. Chairman, the chairman of the subcommittee said that this amendment was designed to tie the president's hands. It was the founders who tied the president's hand. They did not want a King George. They did want a President George, subject to the responsibility given to this body, of which we are the principal representative as the Appropriations Committee. And if we defeat this amendment, we erode that responsibility and that charge given to us by the Constitution, to which we raised our hand and swore allegiance, and that we would bear truth to that responsibility and pledge. This amendment speaks to what the founders absolutely intended us to be: a republic, not a monarchy, a representative government, not a tool of the leader, whoever that leader may be. Let us summon some sense of integrity in our votes, and not simply be subject to some knee-jerk reaction that one side proposed it and therefore it must be wrong or rejected. I ask you to support this amendment.
Thanks, gentlemen. Are there other members wishing to address the amendment? Seeing none, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute to close.
Colleagues, I ask you, what are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? Voting against this amendment is voting to undermine this institution that we were all duly elected to. We were elected to serve the interests of roughly 750,000 constituents all across this great country. It's the honor of a lifetime for me. And as I look around this room and I see all the portraits of all the great chairs of this committee over these past decades, what would they say right now to each of you? Would they tell you to abdicate your responsibilities under the Constitution, to undermine the interests of this institution? For what? Because you're afraid? Of what? You were elected. You were elected. Remember that. Vote yes on this amendment. We are the House of Representatives. You are the elected representatives of the people. I yield back.
I thank the gentleman.